Hey, Mariner fans, we are doing, I don't know if we want to call this an emergency pod, but this is just a podcast that we got Jason Churchill on today. So for an interview, but with a series like the one that we just had with the New York Yankees, where it's just chaos ball ensuing every aspect of it, we wanted nothing other than to just talk baseball. And that's what we got to do. And so we put it together and put it into a podcast. It's going to be a Thursday episode for you. You're going to get another one on Monday, but we're doing middle of the week because that series was just too good not to talk about. I mean, good God, some of the best baseball I've ever seen. Anyways, we got that interview with Church. He's at Prospects Insider. If you're not listening to his podcast, you're not doing Mariners baseball right as a fan, because that guy, he knows his stuff and he's breaking down the numbers, breaking down trades, just awesome points all the time. And absolutely love listening to Church.
Yeah, his podcast is Baseball Things. And on Patreon, it's $5 and you can get the minimum package. And that's honestly all that I do. But I know that there's other options you can go on. And I think you pay 10 and get his whole scouting report and his whole rankings of this and that. And I think mostly the Mariners, but I think he does go into further depth. I only have the $5 package and it works great for me.
That's the rookie package.
That's the rookie. No, it's the prospect package.
It's the prospect package. Oh, wow. Look at you.
But you know what? I mean, he's a different mind on baseball. We're so lucky. It's like when John Clayton, I mean, he started to lose it towards the end.
RIP.
Yeah, RIP. But it was like when Seattle had John Clayton. It's like, okay, this is a local guy, but he's like one of the best in the biz. That's how I feel about Jason Churchill, and like just the mind that he has for baseball. And he's talking about our team. So he's my favorite guy to listen to when I'm listening to podcasts. So do yourself a favor, go check out Baseball Things, pay the $5. I mean, you pay $5 to go get a Starbucks coffee. So get your baseball, still listen to us, but yeah, just add something else.
No, man, but I'm excited for this one. I mean, we just beat the Yankees in the season series for the first time since 2002. I mean, the boys are buzzing, and was able to go, as I'll say later, into the game not on Sunday, not on Wednesday, but the one on Tuesday. And welcome to Seattle, Luis Castillo. We are glad to have you. But anyways, with all that being said, coming up, interview with Church. Go Mariners. After a series like what we had with the Yanks, we're just sitting here talking baseball, man. And yesterday, what's crazy to me is for us to come back and win the second two games of the series 2 times in a row when we lose the first game of the series against the Yankees. That is grit. And that is
different too, isn't it?
Different.
Yeah.
It's different. We haven't seen it. We don't see that. Normally we're getting pummeled in the face. When we go to New York, it's always like, oh shit, man. Here's the evil empire, as Goldie puts it. And then for us, and what I loved the most was I went to the game yesterday, and whenever the Yankees are in town, Blue Jays, Red Sox, whenever those big names fill it up, it's a lot of those jerseys.
Yeah.
I didn't see nearly as many Yankees fans as I saw Seattle Mariner fans, and everybody stayed till the 13th. Everybody was on their feet. You heard Luis Castillo talking about it. It was the most electric. That was probably one of the best games I'd ever seen, ever. And if you're not like a normal baseball fan, right, you're like, oh, 1-0 ball game, 13 innings, that must have sucked. It's like, no, that was a battle of the arms.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. It was weird to see when they did, there was a reliever or two, the Festas and I think the Yankees had one or two that weren't throwing 95, but it was weird. It was weird to like, Festa, that's all you got. You're only throwing 93.5 miles an hour. What the hell's your problem, man? Everybody else is throwing 98. That was, wow. I mean, that was crazy. Like, so today I had a buddy of mine that was like, when New York took the lead 2-1 at the inning right after Haggerty gained the lead, my buddy Joe texted me, and like I was actually driving around at this point, like getting some errands done, and he texts me and he goes, so frustrating, and I go, what happened? So I popped the app open and I was like, damn, okay, 2-1, and he goes, the game's over, isn't it? And I go, I mean, no, but yeah, like I totally get it. Like the game felt, like in a lot of ways over. But when you think about what this team has done the last couple of years, and even back into 2020, like, they didn't feel like it was over. It's just a 2-1 game. They obviously didn't feel like it was over, no matter what was happening offensively to that team over the last 25 or 30 innings. They felt like they had a shot, and to do it the way they did it too, to take the lead the way they took the lead, with Santana, and like all he does is hit home runs in high leverage situations kind of approach to hitting. It's a bold strategy, but it's been working. Yeah. So,
yeah, I mean, we're talking about the 1-run victories at 32 last year, and we thought that would be, so hard to duplicate, but we got 27 on this year, and it's just that bullpen dominance. Early on in the year, it looked like, we weren't going to be able to replicate that, but just new guys stepping up. Penn Murphy, Swanson is just like criminally underrated.
Money, right? I can't explain Eric Swanson either, guys. I've been talking to Joe Doyle about this. I was at the game on Monday with some friends, and Swanson comes in and does his thing, and I text him and I was like, dude, I still don't get Swanson. It's like, it doesn't make sense. Like, the slider's not that good. The splitter's not that good. The fastball's not that good. Like, I don't get any of it, and the data, the metrics on the pitches don't really back up the results either. And it's really difficult. I sat behind home plate for 2 games in May just to try to figure out Eric Swanson. It was the only reason I was there. I was totally stealth, and I was like, does he hide the ball like exceptionally well? Is there something really strange that you can't see on television with his arm? No, like, I didn't see any of that. I still have no idea. I think Eric Swanson is going to put up like a 9 ERA next year and totally suck, because I just don't understand how he's doing what he's doing right now. But yeah, that bullpen's been really good. But you know what? This is a skill. It's a skill to play well in close games, because it is very, very much about how you shift, the decisions you make with the bullpen. It's not just, you're just going to go to your next guy. It's specifically, which guy am I going to bring in against the bottom of this order? And it's not the bottom of every order. It's the bottom of this particular order. It's the bottom of the Blue Jays order, or the bottom of the Yankees, or whoever you're facing, the bottom of the Rangers order. It's the type of hitters that are coming up and who figures to be most successful against those types of hitters. And Seattle's been good at it the entire time Scott Servais has been here. Now, they weren't as good at it in 16, 17, and really the first couple of months of 18, but you could tell it was changing. I remember talking on the podcast about between the 2019 and 2020 seasons that you could feel things kind of turning in terms of how Scott Servais and the field staff were going to handle the bullpen. They weren't going to save their best reliever for the 9th inning anymore. That's exactly what we saw. You could just feel it kind of turning. And ever since then, I mean, the last 3 years now, they've just been remarkable at making the right decision on which guy to bring in and when, to be honest with you. Like, we all complain, don't we? Oh, they left him in too long. They left Robbie Ray in too long. Or they left Logan Gilbert in too long. But, you look over 162 game season, they're just really good at it. And it's a combination of data and more data, and how does the pitcher feel, and even more data. That's just the way they do it. And it's been working. So whatever formula it is, they just stick with it.
Well, it's also just a lot easier. I mean, when you've got guys that are performing to their full potential, as of late, at least, Matt Brash, say 2 innings in the most high leverage situation of his career. That wasn't a plan. Obviously, that was just like, hey, last pitcher, we got to use him. But for him to be able to have the ability to step up in that situation and to freaking get a ground ball behind his back, and then have the instincts, to run right at the player before throwing it, then throwing it. And then watching the replay of that, he immediately goes to third base, ready to field his position. And also what I loved about that double play was you see Haggerty coming in from center field. And if Isaiah Kiner-Falefa didn't go out of the baseline, he was right there, ready to get there. Everybody got to their position perfectly. And that, is credit obviously to the coaching staff being aware of pickles aren't the most common. They're rare, but we got them out. And I think we had 2 of them.
Yeah.
Right?
It's kind of my opinion of this baseball team right now is that they prepare very, very well for everything except the starting pitcher on the opposing team. I do not think they do a good job at that. I think they prepare everything else really, really well. I think they execute very, very well. Granted, we can look at this lineup and go, well, they've been hurt. Like, Haniger and Julio have played 9 games together. Obviously Haniger's been out most of the season. Ty France missed some time. Crawford missed some time. Julio's obviously missed some time. That's a nightmare. So it's not a good lineup at their disposal. But when you see all 9 hitters in the order take the same approach 2-3 times through against the starting pitcher, the same exact approach, the same attack plan, something's wrong, because Sam Haggerty is not the same hitter that Cal Raleigh is, and Cal Raleigh is not the same hitter that Julio Rodriguez is, and JP Crawford's not the same hitter as Eugenio Suarez. So why are they all taking the same? There's a game plan problem offensively, and I know they have a new hitting coach. Laker didn't want to come back, so I don't know. Something's got to change there, and whether it's personnel, whether there's too much of the numbers, too much of the metrics being involved in it. But I've seen a lot. I've been having this conversation a lot lately with some friends in the game. Like, what you're seeing is, okay, this opposing pitcher has a really good, like, high spin slider, and it's a swing and miss pitch for him, and he just doesn't give up hard hit balls, so you don't want to swing at the slider. Okay, great, but Dylan Moore swings and misses a lot as it is, and if he's starting in your lineup and they're just not going to swing at sliders, he's going to strike out looking every single time, or at least before he starts swinging, find himself in a 2-strike hole. Like, every time this guy throws that slider for strikes, that's a problem. And I just see basic things like that as a problem. And it's really the one glaring, at the major league level anyway, the one glaring issue that I see that they're going to have to clean up a little bit. Like, you got to let Mitch Haniger just be Mitch Haniger. You got to let JP be JP and have them kind of take their own approach to it. And you can't go into it saying, don't swing at the splitter, or don't swing at the slider, or we really don't want. I mean, they're not mandating anything, but when that's the game plan, when those are the conversations you're having before the game, the hitters are going to take that to heart, whether it's Mitch Haniger or Carlos Santana or Jared Kelenic. And I just think every hitter is different, too different to have the same attack plan against a pitcher. And we see Seattle do that far too. They're certainly not the only team that does that, but I get to give you 2 examples of clubs that I know do not do it that way. The San Francisco Giants and Los Angeles Dodgers. We know about the Dodgers. They scored tons of runs. Yes, they have really good hitters. Guys, do the Giants have any good hitters? I mean, because maybe if we looked up their numbers, we could say, oh, this guy's having a good year, this guy's having a good. But who on that roster is actually, at this point in their career, a good hitter? So how are they scoring 4.7 runs a night? Like, seriously, right? Like, how are they? Yeah. It's because they're really prepared for that starting pitcher. They really, when a guy comes in from the bullpen, they know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly how to counter something. Okay, so normally he doesn't throw his fastball for strikes. So, maybe I'm still looking fastball a little bit early, but I got to be aware that he might just throw the slider, try to steal a strike. And that might be my best pitch to hit. If it doesn't happen, they know how to adjust to it.
Well, what would you say then in the first game we go against Garrett Cole when he gets, 6 runs in 1 inning?
Yeah. So what were they ambushing in that game? They weren't looking for a pitch type. They were looking location. They were looking location, and he gave it to them. So that's pretty simple. When the pitcher's going to miss, you're going to take advantage of it because you're looking location. So they did a really good job, and the majority of them were fastballs. But I think Kelenic had a changeup.
Kelenic wasn't. I remember that.
Yeah. Kelenic was a changeup, and he had to make a pretty good, midair adjustment on that.
Have we seen the last of him?
I think when Julio gets activated, Kelenic goes down. Yeah.
Especially with the off day, I feel like that. He's not going to travel to Texas with the team. Just
I would, not to get sent down. Yeah, to get sent down the next day or something. So if Julio is going to be back on Friday, then I think Kelenic goes to Tacoma.
Jason, did we lose that Mets trade?
How would they have lost it?
I don't think we did. I don't think we did. I'm asking it for all the people because I've been a Kelenic supporter, and I think it's unfair to the kid. I don't think that he should necessarily be up here right now. And Jerry we trust, but I don't really understand that move. I don't know why you wouldn't just trade for Jake Lamb a couple days earlier, so you don't have to bring him up and kind of stop his development that he was doing in AAA. But I want to ask you if that is as big of a deal as we think it is. Like, does bringing him up right right now from AAA when he was kind of, picking it up and doing pretty well, does that just shoot his confidence again? Or, does it ruin the long-term plan, or is it just not that big of a deal?
I don't think so. I think if they would keep him up and just allow him to struggle the rest of the way, that would be the mistake. But I think there can be some positive from this because he was obviously performing in AAA. So when he goes down, he makes a few changes and things start to work. The one thing he can't do in AAA is test this out against the Garrett Coles of the world, right? And the Nestor Cortezes of the world.
Nasty lefties.
Right. So to be able to come up for a couple of weeks and kind of see how it goes and kind of see where you are, almost a spot check, can be beneficial for him as long as he goes back and can take that information and go, all right, here's where I was when I left AAA a couple of weeks ago. Here's what happened at the big league level. Now let me go back down and do this, this, and this. It's not just going to be business as usual. He's going to use what he's seen these couple of weeks at the big league level when he goes back to Tacoma, and hopefully that continues to help him. It would be a huge mistake to keep him up if you don't have to. Like, the only reason he came up is because they really didn't have a choice. If Trammell was healthy, it would have been Trammell.
What do you think is his biggest problem right now? I know he's faced very tough pitchers, but it's just pitch identification and recognition. I mean, what do you think the holes in his game are that
he's getting behind early? Like,
I think it starts there. Yeah, I think it starts there, but you got to look at why he's getting behind early. Like, you're facing a lefty like Cortez, for example, and he's got that breaking ball, and it's like a slider at curveball velocities that changes eye level to plane break, and he's 92 to 95. So as left on left, and he hides the ball pretty well. So you have to be really aware of the fastball. And then when he spots the slider for strikes, you're kind of at his mercy. So you probably want to sit area and just adjust to the velocity, which is really difficult to do if he's nibbling and successful at it. So he's just going to get a lot of outs against a lot of hitters in that situation. But for Kelenic, like, he does have a pitch recognition, issue. He does have a strike zone coverage issue. I will say it's really difficult for me to speak on the pitch recognition issue, but I will say this: in the minors and on occasion at the big league level the last couple of weeks that he's been up, I have seen signs that he's a little bit more like the swing is a little bit more agile. What I mean by that is, like, we'll take that Garrett Cole changeup that he hit out. Forget that it was a changeup. Think about the location of that pitch.
Outside, right?
Low and away.
Yeah, low away in the zone, maybe, but low away, and he went down and got the bat head on it. Yeah. We've never seen him do that before. We've never seen him do that before at all. And add the fact that it was a changeup, and so therefore he was able to get ahead of it and get it out front of the plate and pull it and get some power behind it. That's just something we haven't seen him do before. So when the swing gets, agile like that, and something that's new for Jared, that tells you he has been working on things of that nature. Because there was really, before he went back to Tacoma, there was really one area where if the pitcher threw a fastball here or hung like a bad breaking ball, Kelenic had a really good chance. It was really just one area, and that was middle in at the thighs. Like, if you went up near the hands or you went away or down, he was getting himself out, or he was swinging and missing, period. So now he's trying to get the, let alone contact, he's trying to get the bat head, in the right position. And I think he's made a lot of progress in that area. There's more. I mean, his at-bats look better even when the results, isn't great, especially against Cole. I mean, it was the second time seeing Cole in a week, and the changeup thing was, probably more of a fluke, but the fact that he got to it matters. The fact that it was a home run was a fluke, but the fact that he got to it matters. And the fact that he went into that, what was it, a 10 or 11 pitch at bat against Cole when he finally struck out, and Cole just dotted. He's probably looking for changeup or a breaking ball again away, and Cole dotted him with 99, low outside corner. I mean, that's just a great pitcher, beating a hitter who doesn't really have much of a chance anyway. But that was a good plate appearance for Jared Kelenic, and we just weren't seeing a lot of those. We were seeing a lot of 4-pitch, strikeouts where he's 0-2 and maybe fouls one off. but he's striking out in that situation. You know that's happening. He fouled off 4 or 5 balls in that, spoiled a couple of really good pitches. Fastball, slider, curveball, fouled them all off. There's progress has been made. So I still have confidence in Kelenic long term, as long as the Mariners do the right thing with him.
All right. What about a Julio Rodriguez extension at the end of the year? What's the
and pay him all the money. Pay him all the money in the world.
What is that? What's that extension look like though? And
give him a lifetime. Man.
Yeah. How likely is it to get done?
So I think the longer the team waits, not obviously the player has to want to engage. So if you're Julio Rodriguez right now, by not signing a deal before the season, you've made yourself tons of money. You've probably made yourself $100 million extra by not signing a deal before the season because of how he's performed this year and how marketable he is. That actually matters a little bit too. The longer you wait from the Mariners standpoint, the more it's going to cost. So you sign a deal between now and the start of the 2023 season, or at least early in the 2023 season, early enough to where the 2023 salary is involved in it. I think you start at the Wander Franco deal and you go north. I think you can, which is what, 11 and 182 with an option year. So if you just think about the 11 and 182, which is what, like $17 million a year, you probably add a couple of $1 million a year AAV to that, and you're looking at like 11 and 200 to start for Julio Rodriguez. If you want to go that long, because if you don't, like, here's the thing: if I'm Julio, I only want to sign like a 7 or 8 year deal right now. I want to be a free agent at 28 or 29, so I can get another like 7-year deal for like $200 million. Because if I sign an 11-year deal, I'm going to be 32, 33 when I become a free agent. I might only be able to get 2-year deal at that point. So he might make more money by signing a shorter deal. But the thing is, he's so young and it's his first year. If he only signs a 7-year deal right now, how many years of free agency is that buying out? Just a couple, right? He's got 5 years of team control after this year. So he's not a free agent until that 6th year. So the 6th and 7th year of a 7-year deal would be the free agent year. So if we just say those 2 free agent years are worth, I don't know, $30 million a year, that's $60 million. So the next 2 years are team controlled salaries at about $1.5 million. He's going to make the minimum plus $10,000, right? So it's about $1.5 million. Then his RBs are probably worth somewhere between $3 and $5 million for year 1, probably somewhere between $7 and $10 million for year 2, and then maybe $15 to $18 million in year 3. So let's just take the medians on most of that. We're really looking at about $25 million, give or take a couple of $1 million for his arbitration years. So you add that to the $1.5 million you own for the first 2 team controlled salary years, which would be 2023 and 2024. And you're just under $30 million. Now you add that to the $60 million for the 2 free agent years. Is he going to sign for $100 million? No. So while a 7-year deal makes more sense for Julio right now, the only real way for him to get big money right now is for him to sign for 9, 10, 11, 12 years. So as much as I keep thinking about it from Julio's standpoint, wanting to get to free agency at 28 or 29, you can give him an opt-out, so you can kind of cover both the base. You can give him an opt-out after 7 years, if he wants it. But you do a deal now, and it's probably 10, 11, 12 years at around $20 million a year, getting you above $200 million. It could be as much as, 225, 230 over 11 years for Julio Rodriguez right now. But if they you wait another year, you wait too long into 2023. And now you're talking about it buying 1 year of team controlled salary, all 3 years of arbitration, and an extra year of free agency. So, and not only does those free agent years cost you $30+ million a year, but the further you push that out, the further inflation makes that 30 million go to 34 to 36 to 40, and it's going to cost you more. So instead of, let's say, 11 and 220, you might end up going 11 and 300. You don't want to do that. He puts more of a huge track record behind him, more 280, 350, 500, hits 30 bombs next year.
Builds a case better for himself every year.
Exactly. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. You don't, if you do it now, you get the best deal most likely, but Julio and his agent also know that. so they can go, well, we're totally comfortable with just, taking the risk and kind of betting on ourselves. So Seattle's going to have to be aggressive. They're not going to be able to lowball them. The agent doesn't even want to engage unless they're willing to start, at about 10 or 20% of what Wander Franco got. So I think he's getting $200+ million from the Mariners. And it could be as much as 250 at the end of the day. But I do think it happens before the start of next season.
See, my viewpoint, right? And I'm coming straight up, like, just as biased as possible, like as a fan, right? And this is more of a hope that I want to believe that exists within Julio. At least the feeling that he has is with him being on the Mariners' first team ever, with the way everybody's embraced him in Seattle, the way he's embraced Seattle back, that he loves this place and that he feels like this is like a legitimate home, right? And so I know baseball is the business, and I know people don't always have that feeling, that love for, their place. Some do, but I'm hoping he's one of them that do have that, and that he's like, I want to do whatever it takes to stay here, and like obviously pay the man his bag, pay the man his money. But I think that like a long-term deal like that, maybe he'd be more, adept to be like, I'll take that. I want to be here for as long as you can.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think that's going to be an issue. I really don't think that's going to be an issue. I think he wants to be here. I think giving a kid like that, $200 million or more, or whatever it takes, 190, 220, it doesn't even matter. I don't think it matters all that much to them. They just want to make sure they're doing the right deal and not and properly setting up the next guy. And there is a responsibility in the game of baseball to think about the players that come after you in that way. So he's not going to want to leave a ton of money on the table. The agent will take care of that. The thing is, I don't even know that it's completely out of the question for Seattle to go, hey, let's just buy out the RBers for now. And let's reward you. Let's get some cost certainty. Let's get some money in your pocket. We'll spread out the value of those RBers. Even if the team's not saving a ton on them, let's spread it out a little bit and get some cost certainty and get some money in the pocket of a player that we want to be here. It would be kind of a show of goodwill, and we'll just continue to consider and negotiate like a long deal. I could see them doing, this offseason, like a 4-year, which would cover all but one arbitration year, like a 4-year deal, or even all of everything. Well, what that would do is just buy you time. So if you're Seattle, you wouldn't necessarily choose that. But if Julio is reluctant to do the 10, 11, 12-year deal because he figures every year he gets behind him, that AAV goes up. Right now it's like 17 to 20. He goes 280, 350, 530 bombs again next year. Obviously, the price is going up because now he's better, got a longer track record, and now it's another year of free agency that you're actually buying for the same length of deal. So you can go to him and say, let's just do this for now. And that would be a way to solidify the relationship and put fans at ease, at least, that the team knows they're in a good spot with Julio financially, that the relationship is good, and that there's still a chance. Because that's essentially what they did with Junior. Like, he didn't get a big 9, 10. Those were unheard of back then. So there were like shorter deals, 3-year deals, 5-year deals for a lot of those guys back then. And then it was like, okay, is it time to just pay the guy? And yeah, it ultimately came time to pay most of those guys. And there'll be a time where they'll have to pay Julio. Yeah, you're right. Better to do the long deal now for so many reasons. But the player has to want to dance, But you're better off, getting him to do-si-do with you than waiting for the polka. Because it's just going to cost you more and more money. If you don't get anything done, you could risk, that relationship getting tense. You don't want that. You don't want to go there with Julio. Just don't take the chance.
No, and I feel like, your average fan, at least, they're not as, like me. I'm not nearly as, when I'm thinking about signing Julio, I'm not thinking like, how can the Mariners do this the most efficiently with their, financial wise, right? And if I were to see, a 4-year, 5-year deal happen, I'm thinking like you said, that's what they did with Griffey, right? But then Griffey, homesick, goes back to Cincinnati, and we lose him. And then, A-Rod.
There's no team in the DR though. You know what I mean? Like, there's no team.
Exactly. So like, that's why it's different. And that's why I wouldn't want to see, this GM regime do what the previous GM regime did with those all-stars, that once in a generational talent that we have again for the first time since Griffey. and lock that man up for I want to see life, as a fan. Like, then it's like, all right, that's what shows to me that we're committed to him, is that we want him here for forever.
Yeah. I think it gets done. I think it'll be long. I do think it'll be a long-term deal. I wouldn't be surprised if there were some player opt-outs involved, just to give the player a little more value to the player, in case Julio was like, wait, after year 6, like, things have completely changed. There could be some value there. I could see him doing something along those lines, but it's a win-win for everybody. Julio's going to make this organization so much money. It's not even funny. And John Stanton knows that, but I was on Mitch's show the other day, and he made a good point. Like, fans are going to look at this, the Julio deal, in a positive light, unless we get to March and April of next year and spring training opens, and the only significant transaction was the Julio extension. There are fans out there still that are worried, that this team won't spend money. And then when they do on their own guy, that they'll say, well, look, we signed our own guy.
That one signing doesn't work. You have to have that multiple. And that's what, like, with Castillo, like with the how much we gave up, we have to sign him.
Sure, but this baseball team needs additions that aren't in this organization right now. And if the only things you can brag about over the winter, the significant things you can brag about, are extensions of players that are already on your team and locked up for 2023, fans are going to throw a fit, despite the fact that it's a really good thing that you extend those players. There are a lot of casual fans still in this town that are very, very cynical. And so I think that the reason I bring that up is because I think the timing of a Julio Rodriguez deal is very, very important from a PR standpoint. So I wouldn't be surprised if it happened very, very early in the offseason. I wouldn't be surprised if it happened really, really late in the offseason. But and when I say early and late, early in their frenzy of transactions, or late in their frenzy, whenever that is. Maybe they don't start adding players until January, whatever that happens to be, because I think that needs to kind of have its own life, and for people to get excited about that, and for it to die down a little bit, and then for Seattle to go out and spend money on a bat from outside the organization, or make another big trade or whatever it is, or, do that first. And then, here's March, early April, here's the announcement of the Julio thing, because otherwise all of those things are going to come across as negative. And as PR, as PR savvy, really, as Jerry DiPoto is, I can't believe they're going to let the Julio thing become some kind of a negative. So I would expect it before Christmas, to be honest with you. I really would.
Maybe on Christmas. Give us that
another Hisashi
wrapped under the tree.
Christmas. Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, I can see it.
All right, if we can pivot real quick away from the contract stuff, which I love, but let's talk about the current team that's on the field that we're watching. What are your wild card predictions, and what's the most advantageous spot for the Mariners? It looks like with this playoff format, the first and second wild card are going to play each other. So if you could be that 6th spot and play like the Twins or the Guardians, if they win there, that would be great. But we probably don't want to flirt with that, getting into the 6th spot.
Why don't you just catch the Blue Jays? Hell of an idea, right? I mean, here we go again, Cotton. It's a bold strategy. You're a half game behind. Just catch the Blue Jays, for crying out loud. Just catch the Blue Jays. This is it. That is it. That is the move. That is where you want to be. You'll host games, which is absolutely enormous. Not just
you can't go to Toronto either, because like I don't know who all on the team. I know there's a couple guys still, Robbie Ray, that aren't vaxxed. Does that come into play in the playoffs?
I mean, It obviously does. It obviously does come into play to some extent. But even if that didn't exist, Toronto is not the best matchup for Seattle. And playing on the road is not the best idea. And you're a half game behind the Blue Jays entering play on Thursday. So just catch the Blue Jays, for crying out. That's it. That's the answer. Catch the Blue Jays. But you're right. This is a scenario where if you do not want to be the number 2 wild card, you would much rather go play your games in Minnesota than Toronto. Or even Tampa. Let's say Tampa ends up winning the number 1 wild card. You'd rather play the Twins than Tampa. Tampa's really strange. Really, they're built very uniquely, but they're very, very good in short series. They'll pull out all the stops with their pitching staff, and they'll probably beat you 2 straight. You don't want to play the Rays in a short series. A long series, Seattle beats the Rays. A short series, I think the Rays clean the Mariners' clock. The Twins, though, the Twins and the Mariners very, very evenly matched. They're different, but they're very, very evenly matched. I would be surprised if, to be honest with you, I'm not sure the Twins are going to win that division. But if it is the Twins, you want to play the Twins. If it's the Guardians, you want to play the Guardians. And you know what? If it's the White Sox, you want to play the White Sox. Like that AL Central champ is the team you want to play in the postseason. Or you can just host the Rays or host the Blue Jays. Or right now, I think the Orioles are actually tied with the Rays for that number 3 wild card. Host the Orioles, right? Like that would be the ideal scenario, to host the Orioles, right?
Can you imagine hosting the Blue Jays and then seeing that infiltration?
They wouldn't come down. It's not planned. They planned it out every year. They get their charter buses. There are 30 of them. It's a whole event planned. They wouldn't have time.
And while they won't announce it, the Mariners have already had conversations about keeping tickets out of Blue Jays fans if the postseason happens in Seattle.
So that is just shocking.
That would be limited.
That's shocking to me, because I did this summer job once where I was peddling Seattle Mariner tickets. It was just it was 100% like a pyramid scheme, and they partnered with the Mariners, and the Mariners gave us these packs of 4 tickets. The Padres, they do this in San Diego as well, actually. But it's a 4-pack of tickets. It was $50 for the thing. It had its blackout dates, the Blue Jays series, the Yankees, the Red Sox, stuff like that. And you could pick, whatever 4 games you wanted to go to, right? And basically what I found out with the Blue Jays is I was up north for a weekend, going business to business, stopping in different, little shops and saying, here on behalf of the Mariners, you guys Mariner fans. And there were some people that I ran into that were from Toronto, and they said, oh no, we already get deals through the Mariners when we come and play you guys. They have a ticket package for us. I'm like, you're telling me my team creates a ticket package for your team to come in our stadium? Yeah. Like they would create discounted packages and deals for these Blue Jays fans supporting the migration of those birds.
About what year was that?
This was the summer of 2016.
Yeah. They've already talked about how do we avoid this kind of. And not just Toronto, but other teams. New York, Red Sox, whoever it might be, because you get the Toronto thing is the one everybody talks about, but when the Red Sox are going well enough, there's tons of Red Sox fans at the Red Sox games in Seattle.
There's also a lot of people coming from the woodworks, just rather rooting for the Red Sox than rather rooting for the Mariners. People who live here. Sure.
Oh yeah. If you ask, like I was asked the other day when I was at the game, hey, how many of these Yankees fans that are here tonight do you think are flew in? Not very many. Mm-hmm. Not very many. They're either transplants or they just assign themselves as Yankees fans, at some point over the last, 10 or 15 years, because the Mariners haven't been any good and they wanted to like baseball. So they just attach themselves to, the Yankees or whatever. There's a lot of that, but yeah, it's, that's not going to happen. There won't be this major infiltration at T-Mobile Park of Blue Jays fans, but just go win that number 1 wild card spot, right? That's the answer to the question, because you don't want to get into a situation where you're like, man, like a couple of years ago, they won 1 too many games and they ended up the number 2 wild card, just like when they lost out on Steven Strasburg in the draft by winning those games at the end of the year against the A's in 08 before the 09 draft. You don't want that to happen. You want to get into the postseason and you want to have the best spot possible, and you don't want to be sitting there rooting for losses. So just catch Toronto. I'm looking at standings right now. Toronto's 60-50, Seattle 61-52. You're in really good shape. You are a half game back of Toronto, and considering the schedule ahead of both those teams, even just in the next few days, guys, like we could see it change hands in the next couple of days. It's pretty crazy what I think the Jays have the Yankees coming up in the next week or two. They have the Orioles coming up while the Mariners are playing the Rangers and the Angels. Like the prime opportunity to climb into that 1 spot and start putting some distance between yourselves and the Orioles and the Guardians and the Rays and and even the Blue Jays at the end of the day. It's not like you look at that Blue Jays team and you're like, they're kind of a juggernaut. They're kind of not a juggernaut. It's just not a great matchup for Seattle. Even if you don't consider the the Robbie Ray thing. And to be honest with you, I do we know, and I'm not accusing anybody of anything, do we even know if Mitch Haniger is vaccinated? I'm just asking an honest question.
No, we don't. We didn't get, the only way really that we know if anybody's vaccinated right now is when that team goes to play in Toronto.
Right. And Mitch was already on the IL. And when he got COVID early in the year, he was out an awful long time. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm just saying it's possible that the most important hitter in your lineup right now isn't vaccinated also. So you could have a critical starting pitcher and the most important hitter in your lineup not available to you if you have to go to Toronto. So yeah, that's a thing. But again, even beyond that, there are a lot of reasons not to want to go to Toronto. You'd rather go to Minnesota.
So let's unpack this. What do you think happens with our very easy schedule and those ALS teams kind of eating each other? Where do you think the Mariners finish in this thing? And then give us a who you think they'll play in the playoffs, and then what happens going forward. Do you think
I'm really, really optimistic? I'm so optimistic.
I'm so optimistic. I'm
so optimistic that, guys, I think the Mariners are going to be able to line up their rotation for that series. That's how optimistic I am that they're going to clinch this on like the 23rd of September or the
not the last game of the year.
No,
I think it's going to be earlier. It's going to be earlier.
I do. The Rays and the Orioles and the Jays are going to be playing the Red Sox and the Yankees and beating the daylights out of each other the rest of the way. I mean, the Orioles are a pain. They're a pain.
They are the mirror image of the 2021 Seattle Mariners in terms of
Chris. I just brought this up to you on the last podcast and you scoffed at me. Now you're going to steal it and use it for your own.
I didn't scoff at they're similar.
Oh my!
They're similar to the Orioles. They're just staying in regard to them just hanging around, being a little pest, right? For all these other teams, it's like they're not supposed to be good.
All right, hold on. Let Jason tell me what he thinks the Mariners are going to do in the playoffs.
I think they're going to clinch before the end of September. How many games do they have in October? Like, I think there are 5 games. I think they put through the 5th. I think they clinch sometime in September and they're able to line up their rotation for that series. I think they end up with the 1 or the 2 wild card spot. I think there's a really good chance they end up the number 1 wild card and end up hosting that series, and they're going to be playoff games in Seattle.
Oh man,
I really do. I mean, it's really difficult. You guys know how I am about schedule. I don't buy that looking ahead on the schedule is like this big deal, but there is value to looking at the schedule and not facing. I mean, think about the best pitchers. Now, I don't know how long John Gray is going to be out, but think about the best pitcher the Mariners are going to face, coming up. Maybe they face Bieber because they have Cleveland, but for the most part, they're not going to face Montas because the Yankees are now off the schedule and he's not in Oakland anymore. So they might get a Martin Perez.
Shohei Ohtani, maybe.
They're going to get an Ohtani, but then now look at that. Look at that series. This could be big. Look at that series. Some of those series in September against the Angels. Right. Get into like, what is it? Like mid, they got the Padres on the 13th and the 14th. And then on the 16th, they start with you about right there. Ohtani could be done pitching. He threw 105 innings last year. Or no, he's throwing 105 now. They're not going to let him throw 175 innings this year. He could get shut down.
Phil Nevin has something against us. And if there's a chance for him to ruin something that we've got going.
Phil Nevin's not going to have that power, though. That's it. They are not going to let Phil Nevin push Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani. I've been mispronouncing that. Like, they're not going to let him make that decision. No, they wouldn't let Mike Scioscia make that. This is an organizational decision the front office is going to make. If it gets to that point and they're not comfortable, I'm not saying they definitely are or that I definitely know what that number is, but there is a chance you get to that series 16, 17, 18 in Los Angeles that Ohtani's shut down. I think that series actually goes through Monday the 19th, obviously, or oddly enough. But then there's another series. The Mariners then have the A's and then the Royals. Obviously, these are But then there's another series. It's the Rangers are in Seattle and the A's are in Seattle, and then the Tigers are in Seattle, and you're feeling really good about this. But if you're going to go through that facing like who are the Tigers going to throw out there? That's really going to scare you. Where's Skubal in his, season and his workload? You're playing him so late that last weekend of the series, he might be shut down. Like he probably will be shut down. The A's have really nothing else but the Blackburns and the Caprillions to throw at you Martin Perez, if Gray comes back, you're just not going to be facing the Verlanders. And, to be honest with you, I think the Houston Astros have 3 starting pitchers in that rotation that are bigger problems for Seattle than anybody that they're going to face the rest of the way, with the exception of Shane Bieber. Like they're probably going to get Bieber once, chances are, maybe even twice in those 2 series. Other than that, that's it. Cleveland's got some good things going on. Like, Tristan McKenzie's having a good year, and the Savali's in the place like they can pitch, but
they're kind of a surprise to me. I didn't think Cleveland's going to do anything this year.
Yeah, they're always good with their arms. They are. And what's really done it for them?
I know, but I just didn't know what they're going to do with,
guys have just started to perform. They get Jimenez to start performing. Rosario starting to hit, and they obviously kept Ramirez. And it's just, they're not a great team, obviously, but they've got a little bit of offense out of spots that they didn't last year. So yeah, I can totally understand thinking of, I didn't know how good they were going to be either. Maybe 500, but maybe they win 90 games too, just because they're really good with pitching. And they do have guys that should have hit better last year, but didn't, and they are this year.
Sure would be nice if the M's were in that division. We'd be leading.
Dude, by the way, was it you guys that mentioned to me, because it's a really great thought. Somebody mentioned to me, it might have been you guys the last time.
Sure, it was. If it's a great thought, it was us.
Yeah. So I'll give you guys credit, even though I have no idea if it was you guys or not. But it was a great idea when you guys suggested to me that the Seattle Mariners moved to the National League West and like switch spots with a team that would travel better to Houston and Texas. Think about a team like Arizona or Colorado, for example. So think about the trip from Arizona or Colorado to Texas and Houston versus Seattle to Dallas or Houston, right? And then you put Seattle in the West, where the worst trip is Colorado or Arizona, or I guess San Diego. You're making the LA trip anyway every year. You're making the Bay Area trip, to Oakland anyway. So that doesn't change. So it would be San Diego, and let's just say Colorado goes to the American League West. So let's say it's San Diego and Arizona are your worst 2 in-division trips, significantly better than going to Houston and Dallas, especially Houston. That's a move that Major League Baseball should make, and that's a move Seattle should be pushing for.
That's a move that I am terrified of, because there's 2 teams I don't want to be in the same division as, the New York Yankees and the Dodgers, because both of them are not scared in the slightest to spend money. Obviously, the Yankees aren't in that division. I'm just saying, you
wouldn't want to be in the division.
I would not want to be. I would not want them in my division, because every year it seems like that they are, you cost a lot of money. I don't give a shit. Here's everything. Come on over. That's what terrifies me.
I got you.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though. Would you like to be the Dodgers? Would you like the Mariners to kind of be the Dodgers? I mean, not in necessarily the way they spend money, but just how good they are. Like, you'd like to be the Dodgers, right?
So then they play up to their level. Then is that what you would?
Yeah. So your best chance. Well, your best chance to be the Dodgers is to. What do the Dodgers do? What do the Yankees do? What do the Red Sox do? What do some of these other teams do that Seattle hasn't really been able to do the last several years?
Spend money.
Even when they offer it, they can't get guys to take it. Okay. What's one of the obstacles? Well, first of all, winning. Winning's the big one. Okay.
Yeah.
Geography and the travel. That's the other big one. Okay. So now what if we eliminated 50% of that? Now all of a sudden, teams or free agents out there like Correa and whoever aren't thinking about the travel. They're like, is this a place I can go, be comfortable, and win? And when the answer to that question is yes, there are no other excuses. There's no, like Trevor's story was a little bit different. Coming off of a down year offensively and wanted to go somewhere where he felt like his bat played. That's always going to be a thing too. But you get these elite free, like Carlos Correa, to me, if he didn't have the health issues, is an elite free agent, and will be again this year. Will be the closest thing to an elite free agent. Like, if you're going to give a guy 8+ years this coming winter, Carlos Correa is the guy, not Trey Turner. And as much as I love Dansby Swanson, not Dansby Swanson, certainly not over Carlos Correa. But if the obstacle of all this travel to Houston and to Dallas, and gosh forbid you have to travel to Atlanta and Miami, every couple of years, like if you eliminated the Houston thing, I mean, it's enormous. It is. Think about Aaron and I were talking the other day about the travel he had to make. And it just reminded me of the travel the team has to make. Aaron went from one game in Houston to a game in DC, back for one game in Houston, and then to New York. And these are the kinds of trips that Seattle is making. What was that trip early in the year when they went to Miami? It was Miami.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Miami to Houston, right? Like, get out of here with trips like that. You got to be kidding me. Miami to LA is a completely different story. At least you're in the time zone that, you're accustomed to. And when you go home the next day, it's 2.5 hours in your home instead of 4.5. Like it's significant. It's huge.
So, but why we leave? Why would we leave when we're already west? Houston, in Texas, they're not west. They're not west at all. Get them out.
The only chance for something to happen right now is if a team pushes for it. In Houston.
So what if Portland were to miraculously get a team? That changes
everything. Terrible idea, first of all.
Yes, but that's why I use miraculously.
If Portland is there, then it doesn't matter what division they go in. They just need to be in the same one as Seattle.
Yes.
So both. Like if Portland was getting a team, you'd want them both to go to the National League West, and for Colorado and Arizona to go to the American League West.
I know. How about we let Houston and the Rangers go to the National League West? We take Colorado. Yeah. Hypothetically, in this world, maybe Portland exists as well. Then we take Portland.
None of that's just on the table at all. A team would have to push for themselves to be moved. Otherwise, you're just not going to convince Houston to go to the same division as the Dodgers. And really, there'd be no reason. There's no benefit to that for Houston. There's benefit to Seattle moving to the West.
There's zero benefit for Houston. That would be bloodbaths. Oh my!
Right, goodness. It would be.
They would be at each other's neck. Oh my! That'd be so. Baseball would love that. Baseball would love that.
Baseball would absolutely love that. And I totally get what you were talking about. Like you're going to go to a division where the Dodgers own it, like the Astros do, and there's actually no end in sight. With the Astros, there's an end in sight. There's absolutely. They're going to be good because at the top they run things really well, better than they ever did under the previous regime that got kicked out. But the talent's starting to run out. Verlander's getting older. They don't have a farm system really left. They're trying to build it back up, but there's not a whole lot going on. They're living off guys like Valdez and Garcia out pitching their profiles. And that's only going to last so long, and that can only take them so far.
Jason, I got to ask you, was Jeremy Pena supposed to be as good as he's been, or is that out of nowhere?
I think it happening right away has come out of nowhere. He was always a guy who had the hit tool, and they felt like he would get strong enough to generate average power, but it happening immediately is what is the thing that's surprising myself and people outside the Astros organization. The Astros really aren't all that surprised. They never made a play after December, they never made a play for Carlos Correa. But they never made a play for Trevor Story at all. And I thought Trevor Story fit in two ballparks, Houston and Boston. And he obviously went to Boston, but that short porch that Alex Bregman loves at Minute Maid fits Trevor Story really well too. And they obviously, at the time, it looked like they had a need, but they really liked Jeremy Pena. And so they never went after him. So nobody in Houston is really, with the Astros organization, is surprised. But across baseball, it's like, didn't realize that he'd be this solid and this consistent this early. But you can say that about Julio as well. Like everybody knew the star upside was there, but happening right away, especially at 21 years old, nobody saw that coming either. Like the consistency is the tough part to project. Even if you told me, hey, last year Jared Kelenic busted in the big leagues and hit 250 with 25 homers, I'd be like, a lot of peaks and valleys, huh? That would have been my guess, even if the numbers ended up being pretty decent. But Julio's been incredibly consistent, and Jeremy Pena has been really consistent too.
Julio's just been the best, man. It's just the fact that
he hasn't even scratched the surface either. People are looking at his numbers and like, wow.
He's going to get bigger too, man. He's 21. He's still got room to grow in that body.
He's going to hit 300. There's going to be some years where he hits 300, which is 25 points-ish higher than he's hitting right now, which means he takes that OBP at least 25 points north, and that slugging percentage at least 25 points north. So you're looking at some years where he's 300, 370, 500 plus. And he obviously has the raw power where if he's going to make that consistent contact, because he really hasn't been all that consistent in terms of contact. There's been a lot of swing and miss in his game, which is obviously going to get better the more he sees the Verlanders and the Coles and all these guys with the funky deliveries and the stuff that moves. That's good for him, and he's gonna obviously get better, and he's gonna come back next year and be better. I mean, he's gonna have years. I mean, his prime. I mean, we're talking about, as long as the environment stays the same, we're talking about a prime of maybe the dude wins a batting title and hits 330, 400, 600 one year. And that's an MVP. That is an MVP in the league with Mike Trout and Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani and anybody. That is a guy where we can at least have the conversation now about maybe he's at one point in his career going to be thought of as the best player in the game. And that's because it's happened so quickly and he's been so consistent with it. Otherwise, we'd still be having this potential all-star kind of conversation. We know he's got 30 to 40 homer potential. We know he's got 270, 280, but he's already actually shown that for large portions of a major league season now. We've seen him react, we've seen him adjust. So you can believe in that a little bit more, and you can believe in the highest reaches of his ceiling a little bit more now because of what he's done. So
he looks good in center field too, and then he's stealing those bases. I mean, the biggest surprise for me was just the defense in center field, how effective he is at stealing bags. If you want to throw another one out there, maybe just his attitude to struggling. I mean, you see Jared Kelenic, have his struggles and the frustration. I mean, Julio was getting screwed early on this year. Pitches getting called strikes that strike him out. I mean, and he's just, he kind of took his lumps and then just rolled on to what he's doing now.
I think about it this way, guys. Like, think about this whole podcasting thing that we all do, right? Like, we don't need it to be successful.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
But we want it to be. We want it to be successful really bad. And it is. It's successful for both of us. And we want it to be. We want to continue to push forward. We're going to put as much effort as we can away from the other things that are more important in our lives, right? Like, Julio's got a few more important things in his life than baseball, like eating, breathing, family, friends. That's about it, right? For us, we have other things, but we're going to continue to push and put forth big time effort in this podcasting thing. Julio, baseball is podcasting to Julio. It's like, I'm just happy and having fun doing this, even though I'm going to put my mind to being the best I can. But if I go 0 for 4 or 1 for 17 with 9 strikeouts, it's like, I'm going to shrug it off because I'm still going to eat tomorrow. I'm still going to wake up and my girlfriend's still hotter than yours. That's Julio's approach to all of this. You can tell Jared Kelenic needs this to be, I can just imagine Jared podcasting, by the way. Jared Kelenic is approaching baseball as this has to be successful for me, or almost as if he thinks his life might be a failure as a result. That's just kind of the intense approach that he has. And he's worked really hard on, backing off of that and realizing this is a long play. Julio knows this is a long play, but he also, while he cares and wants to be really, really good, like, realizes, like, I'm seeing my family all the time and I got money to send home and I'm going to be able to take care of people and I get to play baseball in front of fans, and he loves doing it. That's a question. That's a really interesting question to ask. And I don't know what the question is. I don't know what the answer is. And I would never actually ask him this, but I'm not sure what the answer would be if you asked Jared Kelenic if he actually loves playing baseball. If the answer is yes, I don't know that the answer is yes. Clearly, if you asked Julio that question, what answer you're going to get. It's clear what the answer actually is. And that's the biggest difference between the two of them.
The way I kind of look at that and how that difference may have evolved or come to be over time is just the different cultural environments, the different growing up, right, environments. You look at Kelenic, people in America in general, you're playing baseball your whole life, you're doing club baseball, you're traveling. It's really intense, right? Versus, somebody in the Dominican Republic, they grow up playing, seeing their dads play, fast pitch or
there is a lot of pressure in the Dominican and Venezuelan places like that to get off the island and make money to take care of your family, though. There really is. But you're right, though. Like, what Jared Kelenic's been going through coming out of Wisconsin as well, there's always been something at his back, somebody looking over his shoulder, basically telling him, you might not be good enough, dude. Like, and coming out of Wisconsin and not playing in 100 games a summer, since he was, 12, because that really isn't Kelenic. Like, he really didn't get on that circuit until he was 13, 14, 15 years old. He didn't grow up, playing baseball every single day. There were other things going on in his life. I know his family, they hunt and they fish and they do the whole camping thing. And like, there's a lot of other things. With Julio Rodriguez, it's baseball, 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 always and forever. That's it. Has Julio Rodriguez ever watched like an NFL game, even on television? I don't know that the answer is yes. He's had the opportunity to, but I don't know that the answer is yes, because baseball is really all he has going on. And it's amazing that we can sit here and
raise the 12th man flag. I bet I can guarantee you that.
Yeah. Like, he approaches this in such a great way. I don't know the answer to the question, but it's weird to think that it's possible the only thing that he puts high in his life are his family, his friends, and baseball.
Yeah.
Considering how, his approach to it all, it's smiles. And even as things get tough, thankful for where I am.
But also, like, you think about this, like in the Dominican Republic, Mariano Rivera, this is, I'm sure things have changed, right? But, there's an interview with Rivera where he was talking about growing up playing baseball when he was like, I just wanted to play. I didn't have a glove. So I cut a piece of cardboard, made my own glove. And I'm sure that the ground that they're playing on, the field that they're playing on, it's probably rarely ever, perfectly raked. The tools that they have, the equipment that they have is just so below par compared to what we've got in America. And so with them growing up with that, not as great quality of playing environments, tools, and stuff like that, when they come to the big leagues and they have those perfectly groomed fields, those perfect gloves. And I'm sure obviously as they grow up in the Dominican Republic, yes, they have those. But the point being is when they're playing, they're doing it because they love it and they'll do whatever it takes, make a glove out of cardboard just to make sure that they're playing the game. And starting off with those tools, and then once you graduate towards those better ones, that's got to have a major impact.
Yeah. And because everybody in the Dominican, every boy, and now these days, there are a lot of girls playing baseball down in the Dominican and in Venezuela and Panama, where Rivera is from, and all these places, Nicaragua. Because everybody plays, there aren't enough teams for everybody. You have to actually earn your way on the teams down there at 8, 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. You can play stickball or street ball. But in the last 20 years, as Major League Baseball and a lot of former players have gone there to create leagues and opportunities for youth baseball, there still aren't enough teams for every state. You can't carry 30 9-year-olds on a team. You can carry maybe 22. What do the other 8 kids do? So there are a lot of instances where there's pressure on these kids at 8, 9, 10 years old already. So there's something to be said for that kind of training in life at such a young age, and why it shouldn't be that way. A lot of these kids from the Dominican and Venezuela and places like that did go through scenarios like that, where maybe they didn't get to play in the league and they just had to go play in the park with their school friends because there wasn't enough room on the like you mentioned with not having the equipment. Like a lot of times the leagues are, giving out some of the equipment. And if you're not in the league, they don't help you with your equipment. Yeah. So that unfortunately is still going on in some parts of some of those Latin American countries. But, Julio has always had this disposition. I remember the first time I heard him talk, it was in Spanish. But the entire time he was smiling the entire time, it's just remarkable. His disposition it's funny. It reminds me of my nephew when he was like a year old. Like, why is he laughing? He just shit his pants. Like, why is that funny to him? Like Julio just went 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts and he's doing an interview after the game. He's got a smile on his face. Like I don't know. It's pretty special. It's very, very rare. I can't think of anybody else like him. Not even Junior, man. Like Julio's
Julio.
Yeah, is extremely unique in that way, and I mean he's a unicorn. And as we talked about a little earlier, unicorns are not just rare, but they're expensive to keep. So
yeah.
Okay, well he is a unicorn, Jason, but we can't leave here without asking you if you had to compare him just on the stats. We're not talking about his smile. We're not talking about his disposition, any of that stuff anymore. Like, what does this guy's career look like? I mean, it could be a guy that's playing right now. It's hard to compare him to an Alex Rodriguez. To me, that's what pops in my head. I've heard the cross sport comparison. I've heard Magic Johnson. That's taken in his kind of his disposition toward the world. But I want to hear, like, from you, just a player that kind of he could end up being. Like, what do you see for Julio?
Yeah. Can I say something real quick?
Go for it.
So I just hate this question because I don't think you can compare a player without having the non-measurables, because what Julio brings with those non-measurables, that's not beyond the number, that is beyond the numbers and not just the numbers.
So if we disqualify it like that and just say, just looking at it from a statistical on-field production standpoint, it clarifies the question a little bit, because you're right. Like, he's so unique in that way that there's no comparison there. Not even Junior, nobody like that. I still look at the best years of Ronald Acuna Jr. What was it? 2019. He went 280, 41 bombs, had the 37 stolen bases. Really good year. I think he was I think he finished with like a 520 slug. I think that's pretty close. Here's what I don't think is going to happen with Julio though. People are thinking, and I imagine you thought of A-Rod because of the power speed combination. I don't think we're going to see Julio Rodriguez stealing 30 bases a year.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to progress that way. I mean, they kind of do that early on in their career, and then eventually they kind of become,
he's going to beef up.
And he's kind of been dinged up his entire professional career, and they're just not going to want to take those chances, especially now with his wrist being a thing. You're not going to want to risk jamming that, in some sort of dive into second base. I just don't think we see him steal, 300 or 400 bases in his career. I don't think we're going to see him steal 30 to 40 bases a year, but being able to play center field at least early in his career, and I think he can get to 40 home runs, and I certainly think he can hit at least 280 and get on base 35, 36, 37% of the time. I see prime Ronald Acuna Jr., but Acuna is really early in his career too. So when we're looking, historically, it's a really good question. I see him being a guy who we look back on in 30 years, when his career is over, at very least as a guy who had Hall of Fame talent. Whether he puts together those seasons or not, I don't know. We'll have to see. But I look back to the 90s. In the early 2000s, and I see lots of guys like offensively and even defensively in combination that kind of remind me of what it looks like Julio is going to be able to do. And Griffey is one of those guys where it falls in. You look at what Griffey did in a 15-year span before he was so old that the numbers were falling off. I mean, he was basically hitting 290, 300 every year with, a 550 to 600 slugging percentage and 40 plus bombs. Had a couple of years where he hit the 50 plus and put up a 140 WRC plus over a long period of time. A-Rod is another one that did exactly the same thing. But even guys like offensively, guys like Frank Thomas. But when you put the package together, it's difficult to find guys that were as good defensively and as valuable defensively. Now, I don't think Julio is a Gold Glove center fielder or anything. And I think in 4 or 5 years, he's not going to be that good out there because he's going to be a 230, 235 pound guy. He just is. He's already 220, 225. So I think he sticks in center until he's about 25, 26 years old. And then it ultimately ends up moving to right, or at least should move to right field at that point, but still a value defensively. So we can't even go Manny Ramirez, because he's going to run circles around Manny Ramirez defensively, right?
He's not going to cut off a throw from Johnny Damon.
Right. So I look at like the prime years of even a guy like Scott Rowland, who was great defensively at third base, as being closer in comparison to what Julio can bring to the table. I mean, in his best years, Scott Rowland was 300, 400, 600 with 35 homers for St. Louis. That was his prime year. That was his best season, and big value on the defensive side. But yeah, I see so many guys who make sense from an offensive standpoint or make sense from a defensive standpoint, but to be able to put those things together is really, really difficult, unless you want to go back to like the 60s and 70s, which makes it even more difficult because, what's the difference athletically between Willie Mays in his era and Julio Rodriguez now? I mean, that they're the same guy. They could run, they could defend, they could throw, and they could hit with the best of them. And that's what we think Julio Rodriguez is going to be able to do, at least from a speed and defense, early in his career. And then when you go the extreme the other way, well, he's not quite Andrew Jones defensively or anything like that, but he's at least Bernie Williams out there, but he's probably going to blow Bernie Williams out of the water offensively, right? 100%. So you just keep running into those walls, right? So it's really difficult to find those combinations, and that's why Acuna Jr. That 1 year that he was healthy and hit the 40 bombs and played center field. Some of Griffey's years are going to look a lot like Julio's years. I think in some ways Julio's defense is still underrated a little bit, even though I don't think he's a Gold Glove or anything like that. But I also think over the course of his career, Griffey made the diving catches and everybody thought he was this elite, like all-time great defensive center fielder. And he really wasn't. He was certainly above average and maybe at his best plus a couple of times. So I think the defense is actually closer there than some people are giving Julio credit for. I think he was pretty close to where Griffey was in his prime defensively right now. So, just in terms of general production, not comping the player and the style and things like that, Griffey's actually a pretty decent comp for Julio Rodriguez.
That's honestly probably the best answer that you could. That after all that, to come back around to Griffey, I absolutely love that.
And we know stylistically they're not close, but that's right. Yeah. That's not what a comp is supposed to be. So like people have brought up Jim Edmonds to me, and I'm like, well, first of all, I think Julio's better than Jim Edmonds. I think he's already as good as Jim Edmonds really ever was. And Edmonds played in a time and age when not only did the ball fly, but contact rates were so high. Like if you struck out 22, 23% of the time, you were up near the league leaders. That's not what we're seeing right now. And Edmonds was a 280, 380, 540 guy in his best years. 130, 140 WRC plus, but Julio's already doing that. He's 21 years old. So I think he leaves a guy like Jim Edmonds in the dust. I think he leaves Bernie Williams in the dust. I heard a really interesting one a couple of weeks back. When you look at Carlos Beltran's best years offensively, might that be closer to what Julio, is? When you look at Beltran, was it his second year, maybe his third year with the Mets when he was 280, 390, 600 with 41 homers? Like that sounds more with above average center field. That sounds more Julio like in his prime to me.
That is a good one. That's good.
See, but these guys I think Julio's prime might not even be reached for a number more years, but he's still going to have those better seasons than those guys that we're talking about now that had their prime for a couple of years. I think he's going to
that season he just mentioned
from Beltran.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Beltran though, like in year 4, he was 306, 362, 514 with 31 home runs, right? Yeah. The 30 home runs and 30 stolen bases. Like we haven't even seen Julio do that yet. So I don't want to get too far ahead. Like we know Julio's going to hit the 30 plus home runs. We don't know where that's going to end though. We don't know where the environment's going to be, but yeah, there are some ways to think Julio's capable of more than that. Absolutely. Like I'd be surprised if he didn't hit 300, at least a couple of times. It wouldn't shock me if it was next year, to be honest with you. He just started going 300, 370, 500 next year. I think where the average and the power meets and he wins MVPs is probably, let's see, this is 22. I'd say 26, 27, 28 are probably going to be Julio's best years, value-wise and offensively. He's probably still going to be playing center field. And, that's probably his athletic prime, at 25, 26, 27 years old. So, yeah, if he's going to win an MVP, it's most likely going to be right around there, although Beltran's best year, he was 29. So, that was an interesting comp that I had never really heard before. Yeah. Cause they're different athletically. They're different guys. I mean, Beltran was like 6'1" and 205, so.
Yeah. Well, at least for now with this season, with the rest of what we got, there's light at the end of the tunnel. We're talking about getting into the playoffs before the season ends, not having to sit in that last day. And I'm just so freaking pumped to be able to, we were talking about earlier, those Red Sox fans, those Yankees fans that they don't want to root for the Mariners because they've never been good. But this is where for people like us, where, this passion that we've had, the ups and the downs that we've gone through is going to pay off. And it's going to feel so damn sweet when that playoff drought gets broken.
Let me ask you guys a question. Because you guys have done a really good job, I think, of remaining fans. That's not something I was able to do. So it's difficult for me to have that point of view. So as fans of this baseball team, I don't know how old you guys are, but you guys remember,
28.
You guys have been fans. The whole time that you guys have been fans, essentially, the team hasn't been any good. You were
2001. 2001, the last time I made him, Max Schwabe, Zweifel, I know you remember that a little bit. I don't remember the 2001 season. I barely remember, 2002, 2003, third grade. That's really when I started getting into baseball. Sure, we got like 93 wins. We're out of the playoffs against the A's, I think by like 2 games. But you're exactly right, Jason. I have never witnessed the Mariners be that team that I've always wanted them to be. And
I remember 2000. that's as far as I can go back, where we laid the bunt down against the White Sox.
Game. Yeah.
And my dad was at that game, and he got pepper sprayed outside the stadium.
Why?
He was just in a crowd, and some White Sox guy and a Mariner guy got into it, and had nothing to do with him, but he got pepper sprayed. But that 2001 year, I mean, it felt like we were up in Seattle, 3 times a month. I live about 3 hours away from Seattle in the Tri-Cities, but I mean, I caught a Brett Boone ball that year. But yeah, keep on going, Jason.
Yeah. So my question is, let me paint a scenario. Okay. No matter when they clinch, but I'm going to paint a specific one anyway. They clinch on September 27th. They clinch a playoff spot on the 27th. Let's say they clinch the number 2 wild card on the 1st. Okay. So they're locked in on the 1st. They get to line up their rotation, but they're going to Toronto. Okay. They're going to play all, every game in Toronto. And let's say they lose, whether it be in 3 games or 2. How are you feeling about this baseball team and this season?
I am feeling extremely bummed if that happens first, but just the fact of knowing that if that happens and I know how the result is, I'm still happy with it because I know that there would have been that day. Mm-hmm. There would have been that time period of a week, 2 weeks, whatever it would be, before they got knocked out, that I experienced that joy of clinching that game and knowing going into the playoffs. It would suck because I've always imagined seeing the playoff atmosphere within T-Mobile, and I wouldn't be able to see that because they're playing away. Right. But just I can imagine, if that September 28th, 7th game, I don't know if that's at home or away. If it's at home, I'm at that game. If it's away, I'm at a bar with my friends and everybody's losing their damn mind. That is the joy, and that's the feeling I've always wanted to.
Let me tell you why
I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed because right now I can see such a clear path to the playoffs with as easy as our schedule is going to be, with the addition of Luis Castillo. Just kind of with the vibe of the way that things are going, we just got through, the toughest 2 weeks past the All-Star break that we're going to have to deal with. We did it, I think we're 10-10 of the last 20 or something like that. I mean, we're out of the storm and we have a very easy road to hoe. It feels right now like we're in the playoffs. So if we lost the first series,
to me, last 2 games, the amount of fans at the stadium is that playoff atmosphere.
But I know, Jason, you're going to make the point that it can't be a failure and it can't be disappointing because we haven't.
No, I was just wondering how you guys would feel about it because I think it's pretty subjective. I completely get any point of view that it would be. I really do. Like you were saying a second ago, like you'd be bummed. Like your disappointment would be situational about the, how the playoffs turned out, not necessarily. You wouldn't be disappointed in the season necessarily, but, certainly itching for more for next year, but I can totally also see kind of thinking that the season turned out to be as close to a failure as anything else, even though you kind of got that monkey off your back. I mean, nationally, the monkey's going to be off your back and it's going to be seen as a successful season, but Mariners fans, I'm never going to try to sit here and tell a fan to just be satisfied with getting swept out in the first round. I mean, never. I'll disagree that the season was a failure, but I won't disagree that losing, in the first round of the playoffs, I mean, that's a failure. I think you're as good. You're good enough no matter who you're playing and where you're playing those games in the first round to win that series.
I do too.
And so 100%. It's going to be disappointing if they don't. I'm also one of those guys who, like, I'd rather lose 10-0 than 1-0 or 2-1 in the last. I just would. No I don't want to sit there and, like this has happened with like the Huskies, before, and for me watching a game and it's like it's close the whole time and I'm like, are you kidding me? I sat here and gave you all that energy and you lost on a field goal, a 54-yard field goal. I hate that. I'd rather lose.
Our job as fans. We have to go through those experiences with them. And if
I've done it enough too, maybe that's why I feel that way. Maybe I'm 48 years old. I've done this for 45 years. Ever since I can tie my shoes, I've been watching Sonics, Mariners, Seahawks, Huskies, and I've done that. I gave it the office kind of a thing. Right? I'm like, let me protect myself. That's kind of the approach I have to it. But I get it. Like, I get that it would be
supposed to get hurt. Sports are John Mellencamp. His song as what I compare to my love of sports, and especially towards the Mariners, that it hurts so good. And when I get that emotional roller coaster, and I'm way wanting to have that emotional drainage go throughout a game where I'm on the edge of my seat, I'm freaking chewing my nails, and if they come out, as long as there's just that one chance, it ain't over to the fat lady sings. And if it's a close game, it's a 2-0 game, it's a 1-0 game, it's a get one guy on, it's a one hit away, and it's like, damn it if you don't pull it out. But having did the last two games
the entire Yankees series feel that way to you? Were you on like the edge of your seat? Your heart was kind of pounding. Did it feel like that?
Yes. The last couple games?
Yeah,
I loved it, and I loved it, and I loved it, man. Like, just being at the game yesterday, and for people listening to this, yesterday would have been 2 days ago for you now. Anyways, being at that game where it was the best pitching duel I've ever witnessed, and with it continuing to go into another extra inning, and another extra inning, and another one, and then another
Especially
one.
The way that it happened.
The way that it happened
was crazy.
With New York. With New York using the runners that Rob Manfred gave him for free to get outs with, instead of to score runs with, he used them to get outs with. And for us, our defense to make that shit happen, it's just like chaos.
So after that, after the double play, the line out double play, my dad texts me. He goes, "Hey, is today the Mariners' birthday?" And I go, "What? what the fuck? What are you talking about?" He goes, "Is today the Mariners?" I go, "No, like 77. Like I think the team became official." I'm getting all technical on him, I think the team became official in like January of 19. He goes, "I don't know. The Yankees just gave him a gift," and I'm like, "I see what you're doing there." And then they did it again. I mean, that was one of the craziest sets of extra innings I've ever seen, and I've seen a ton of baseball. Absolutely crazy. I think Scott Service.
That's what you miss out on. That's what you miss out on, those opportunities, if you're rather wanting to sit through a 10-0.
Okay, but if you go out and lose that game, it's a bad memory.
Sure. But
like, would you have rather, like, are you a Seahawks fan?
Yes. Yes.
You know where I'm going with this.
I do.
You don't want to lose like that, right? You don't want to lose like that. The heartbreak, it's right there, and you should have won that game and you don't. Like that's really rough. That's really I get
that's rougher because that's bad play calling. That's stupid. That's beating yourself. If another team beats us with their talent and us not throwing a pick when we run it with Marshawn,
so a little bit of a counter to that. Yeah, I think it's and I haven't heard this a lot, although I can't imagine I'm the only one that thinks this. To me, it's not a bad play call. To me, it was Russell Wilson making a horrible throw in a situation where he should not have thrown that ball. There should have been an alternative, throw the ball away into the back of the end zone and live. Like, you cannot go into a play thinking this is the only place I can go with the ball,
right?
Or it's a failure, and you throw into tight coverage like that, the ball gets tipped. And even if Butler didn't squeeze it, that's kind of how I feel about that play. But I certainly get it. Certain heartbreak, no matter whether it was a bad play call or bad execution, or even if it was a good play call and that happened, it's still certainly heartbreak. But
so they had 3 plays
to run down there, and they didn't want 3 runs. So one of them ought to be a pass, and they had 1 timeout or whatever the hell it was. I can't remember.
There's like a minute 52 left.
If you want to throw a pass, you throw a fade to the back pylon, where if it gets tipped, it's probably out of bounds. Anything over the middle there, I mean, it could have been an interception in multiple ways. The ball could get tipped at the line of scrimmage and popped up in the air.
Why not want to run some sort of a swing with Baldwin to the far side and just try to get the 2 yards, like just something to spread them out, just something, because you mentioned there was 1:52 left when they started the play. You really want to run that clock a little bit in a perfect world, right? You want to score
coming back down
how long it takes, but you want to run the clock too. And throwing the football is a little bit weird, but if you score, then at least you scored, right? Sure. So that's kind of.
I have a conspiracy theory that Belichick knew that play was coming, because we see the clip earlier in practice. They're running the exact coverage to cover that play, and then we see the clock running down. Belichick has timeouts, and he chooses not to use his timeouts to save the clock. And everyone's wondering what the hell's going on here. But it's almost like he's like, hold on, they're about to do it. They're about to fall into our trap. Let them do it. Oh, they're doing it. And then let's go, putting our big base defense out there. Or whatever.
I mean, Butler certainly read the play.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
I mean,
yes.
whether Belichick did or Butler certainly did. There's no question about that. Zero question.
He just beelined.
Yeah.
Jason,
fun 2014 Seahawks stock.
is it though? Jason, before we let you go, and I want to thank you for coming on here. We are going to plug the Baseball Things podcast before this interview, and let everyone know that they need to go over there and get all that good stuff, because I listen every week and it is my favorite podcast. Not just saying that because you're on here. So much good stuff on there. Jason breaks down everything that's going down week by week, and it's almost like I want to hear about the Luis Castillo stuff, and I look on there and it's Luis Castillo. I want to hear about this, and I look. It's like you're reading my mind and you're giving me exactly what I need every week on the dot. But I will ask you one thing before we part. That 2001 Mariner squad that won 116 games. You can pick one player off that team, and it can't be Ichiro and it can't be Brett Boone. Who are you adding to this squad that gives us the best shot to go, as far as we can go in the playoffs?
It can't be Ichiro and it can't be Brett Boone.
Well, I would think you would pick those two.
Those are the two. It can't be.
Would you? You would pick Ichiro or Brett Boone, probably, right? If I didn't exclude them,
maybe. Yeah. I mean,
maybe. I don't know.
Here's the thing. What's the biggest weakness on this baseball team right now?
I would say
health.
Just sure, but offense, right? They're not scoring off runs.
Yes.
Who's the best hitter on that 2001 team?
Ichiro or Brett Boone?
Edgar.
Edgar.
There you go. That's the guy.
Oh yeah.
Damn! If I would have thought about Edgar, I don't know why I didn't. I would have excluded him.
You would have excluded him.
Fuck.
So if you say I have to pick a pitcher or whatever, I would.
Damn it.
I would take one of those starters and kick Marco Gonzalez and Chris Flexen completely off the team. Like,
I'm so disappointed I didn't think of Edgar.
I would designate for assignment both of them and go win a World Series this season. Like, you're done. You're done.
Yeah, I thought you would have picked Freddie Garcia. Now that I excluded those guys.
Sure, yeah. Yep, probably the guy I would pick. Like, in this rotation, Freddie Garcia, assuming Kirby and Gilbert are good to go, Freddie Garcia is like the 4.
Yeah.
He was the 1 on that team.
God.
He didn't have anything dominant, right? He was just kind of
he was 93, 94, up to 95. Pretty good stuff, curveball, changeup. Like, he was good. He was probably, I thought 2001, he was every bit as qualified to win the Cy Young as Mussina and Clemens and everybody else that got all the votes. Like, he had a really good year and covered a lot. He was a little bit more of a volume guy, but what do you have, an ERA right around 3? And if you go look at some of the advanced metrics now, they back him to be like a top 3 guy. So you could fit him right in the middle of this ridiculous rotation. And like, if you could start the season with Freddie Garcia on the squad, and then add Castillo in July, like, I don't know, shoot, you might be within striking distance of the Astros at this point. Like, think of all the games that they lost. Ignore the Robbie race. He struggled. They lost games because he just wasn't good. They lost a lot of games because the offense wasn't great, and they're still doing that. But think of all the games that they lost because Chris Flexen and Marco Gonzalez just don't really have the kind of game to, when the offense struggles, keep the team in a position to finish it out and win it. They don't really hand it off to the bullpen as much as a Logan Gilbert has, as much as Robbie Ray, since he turned it around, has, as much as Luis Castillo will. Imagine having another guy that could do that, could go 6 and 7 and keep that bullpen even fresher. And boy, how good did Diego Castillo look on Wednesday after getting a little time off, like, ridiculous.
Sexy.
So,
I was so disappointed early on in the year, and then just see him prove me right. It just feels great.
Yeah. So last thing for you, Jason, the riddle.
Oh, jeez.
A man
spare him.
Shush. A man leaves home, makes 3 left turns, and is on his way back home when he notices 2 men in masks waiting for him. Who are they?
I don't know.
They're the catcher and the umpire.
I like it. That's good.
Little baseball riddle.
And even though everybody keeps talking about robot umpires, we're not ever going to have actual robot umpires. So cool your dogs on that.
I love how Jason took 0.5 seconds. Like, I don't know. Tell me.
I don't want to play the guessing.
I'm
game.
not going to play
Just
this.
tell me the
game
answer.
with
It's
you.
a good riddle. It's a good one.
It's a riddle.
You guys noticed that that they've had the electronic strike zone in minor league baseball this year in AAA?
Yes.
Yeah. So you knew that, but you didn't notice it, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because it's you can't notice it. You have no idea what's going on. Like I had to tell people at the game a couple of weeks back, no, like he's got a thing and he's being told. They're like, wait, what? Seriously? Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. So all these people complaining about the robot arms thing, like, yeah.
I actually have one more question I was curious to get your thoughts on. You just reminded me of it. So somebody had tweeted this out a while ago, and they said one of the best things that they could do with utilizing the pitch comm would be to give the umpire behind the plate that pitch comm as well, so they know what pitch is coming, so they know where to look. Mm-hmm. So if they're not knowing if a fastball or slider is going to come, they can see if it's going to be high and tight, low and away, right? They can obviously see where the catcher's setting up. But if they know what pitch is coming, that would help them be able to do their job more effectively.
Okay, so why have we gone backwards from the electronic strike zone to telling pitchers what?
This is to save for the umpires to save their livelihood, a piece of their livelihood.
I mean, they're still gonna nothing's gonna change there. The umpires are gonna be paid the same. Their job's just gonna be easier and have less grief.
Well, then just to make Tom Murphy happier, then, because I know he absolutely is super against it. Right, the automatic strike zone.
So here's the problem with that. So the umpire now is potentially, and I guarantee you it will happen, is going to be a tell to the hitter in which pitch is coming. Now the umpire knows it's a slider away.
Well, how's the hitter going to see him? How's the hitter going to see him?
He's going to move outside.
The hitter, he's going to look. They sometimes peek at the catcher. They do that now. Now he's going to look. He's going to make a point of it. Does the umpire? They're going to look. They're going to study. Teams are going to study.
If somebody's on base, they can easily see. They can
CB Buckner does this when it's a pitch away or when it's a slider or whatever. Yeah. The umpire is a potential tell in that scenario, so you just can't do it. Yeah.
Damn it, Jason. That's a pretty damn good
thought. I totally get where you're coming from.
Though.
Yeah. But the electronic strike zone is going to be good for Major League Baseball, and it's coming. It's coming in a couple of years. It's going to be good.
Yeah, that would be exciting. Yeah. Sweet, man. Hey, well, Jason, always appreciate. I just love talking with you, man. I was so pumped just to talk baseball today, especially after this series. I was like, I just want to talk baseball. So appreciate you, man. Working in time to come on, and man, just let's ride, man. As Russell Wilson would say, let's ride, Seattle.